I got remanded into custody as a police officer, serving police officer. I ended up at Pentonville Prison. And about 4 or 5 of them come to my door and slid the newspaper under the thing with my picture in it.
Oh.
Oh, cop. I was like, either front it out or I'm going to get I'm going to get killed here.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Extraordinary Lives, a podcast from LADbible. Today joining us we have Paul Page. Paul, welcome.
Thank you.
If you, for anyone watching or listening, could just tell us who you are.
Yeah, my name's Paul Page. I'm a former Royal Protection Officer, previously stationed at Buckingham Palace.
So you've had a fascinating life. It's there's lots of chapters to it. And I guess, why don't we start at the start? What was childhood like for you?
Well, I grew up with my grandparents. Obviously, my parents had problems, hence why I was with my grandparents. They were fairly wealthy, so I had a fairly privileged background, old-fashioned upbringing, and I was put into sports at an early age. I didn't feel different not being with my family. Obviously, I was an only child. I did see my parents, but I think my grandparents, they kept me busy.
And then eventually you basically, I think the first chapter of your life really is joining the police.
Yeah.
So what was it that made you want to join the police in the first
To be fair, I really didn't want to join the police at first.
Okay.
I wanted to join the fire brigade.
Right.
But the police weren't recruiting. And neither were the Met wasn't recruiting at the time, and neither was London Fire Brigade. So I had to think, and I thought, I'll try Essex Police. And I managed to get in. And it was, I think I did 20 weeks training, I think. It wasn't easy back then to get in the police. I mean, I'm going to say it's pretty easy now. It was up until recently, but you had to pass a lot of tests. A lot of it, I think I had 4 different interviews and then one big one. So it wasn't straightforward. I think they could pick and choose a lot more then.
And what appealed to you? Like, so you're saying it wasn't your first choice, but
I think I wanted to join the parachute regiment, but I was scared. I was frightened of heights. And then obviously the fire brigade was another issue. Would have been another issue. But I don't know. I don't think I could have done with going away 9 months of the year as a soldier. I don't think I had it in me. I'll be honest with you. I don't think I had that sort of mentality where I could leave my family for that period, because obviously I was loyal to my grandparents and they were getting on. So that sort of pushed me away from that idea.
Okay, and with the police, were you still, because as you say, you come from quite a disciplined background from your formative years. Were you still looking for something with that kind of discipline, or was that not?
Physical sort of running around and sort of, and I think I wasn't. Don't get me wrong, I wasn't a saint. You know what I mean? I've been chased by the police when I was a youngster, not for any major crimes, but I've been a little shit, let's say. Do you know what I mean? Like most kids are. I think what happened when I was in the TA, a friend of mine, he was only 17, 18, he was a soldier as well, part-time soldier, and he was in a nightclub with his girlfriend, and there was an issue and he got stabbed to death.
Oh, God.
And what happened was they asked us to carry the coffin in uniform, and so they brought a coffin into the TA centre, and I couldn't do it. I didn't have the guts to do it. I didn't even go to the funeral. I just couldn't sort of get past what had happened, and the shock was too much. And then I saw I looked at the police and I thought, you know what, I'm going to go for it. And that environment, you are literally dropped in it from day one. It's nothing, no matter how much training you do, nothing can prepare you for real life.
But real life within the police? Within the police. So the first few years, what were the first few years like?
The first year, I was assaulted, I was nearly shot, I had to guard a horribly mutilated dead body. So all kinds of different things. I think that year we went and told the family, their son, luckily the only time I've ever done that, tell someone their partner had died, the son had died. That was horrific. So there was a lot of things that happened to me that I was only 20 and I was only still a youngster really, although I've told you I've had this experience in doing this, that and others, but this was totally different.
And I guess like when you say guarding a horribly mutilated dead body, like there's no training that's going to prepare you for that.
I mean, again, back in them days, I'm what you would call, or what I regard myself as, an old school copper. Old school values, which I'll come on to. It means if you're a sort of police officer, you're going to get a double clump.
Right.
and I'll explain why. Because back in those days, society moves on. What is acceptable at certain periods of time is not acceptable now, if you know what I'm saying. And back in those days, as police officers, there was only one sort of unit that would protect a police officer, and that's a police officer and other police officers. We didn't regard the law as particularly protective over us as individuals. And I'd seen a number of officers assaulted. And I'll give you one example. I mean, we all had nicknames back then, which is not politically correct now. When I joined the job, I went to the street duties office, and the sergeant said to me, "Welcome to the Isle of Essex. This is where you're going to stay for the rest of your career, probably." So he said to me, "Oh, can you make tea?" He goes, "I hope you can, or you're going to be the most unpopular person on the relief." Because there was no sort of, "Oh, don't say that to him. You're now the tea boy, and if you don't like it, piss off." That's how it was. You don't get to go in a police car. You're going to pound the beat, and you're going to take every job that comes along, not because they're being horrible to you, because you have to learn your craft. You have to learn your trade. And so they want to see how you get on. And so back then, an officer, he was a neighbourhood beat officer, probably few and far between nowadays. And this officer, we nicknamed him Wilf, because he used to go and visit old people's homes and sit there eating tea and cake. So that's hence the name Wilf. And bless him, he didn't have much about him. So he wasn't physically capable.
Sure.
But there's different strengths in the police. You don't have to be a macho man, but so his sort of niche was dealing with community matters and stuff like that. A really nice bloke. All the local youngsters used to take the piss out of him because he used to ride a bike. And bless him, he used to tuck his socks in and all his trousers in his socks, and back in them days, it wasn't really a good idea in the areas we were policing. So he went out, one night duty, he was covering with us. He was on the car on his own. He went down to a road called Criminality Street. There was about 10 yobs down there, and they beat the absolute out of him.
What for?
Nothing. He went down because they were causing a disturbance. They were terrorising local people. He's gone down there just to attempt to move on. And they just switched on him and beat the out of him. So basically what we did was we rounded them up one by one. We systematically beat the out of them.
Right.
And the reason for that is, if you're going to touch a police officer, you better know what's going to happen to you. Because next time they could kill, if you let it go, they could kill a police officer. Or what they're going to do to a member of the public. That's where our thought process was at the time.
So were you still a junior officer at this point? Yeah. So you're learning that this is how it works.
Because back then, in '92, I joined the police.
Yeah.
So I had officers pre-PACE, which is Police and Criminal Evidence Act. That came in 1987, which was, to stop the sus laws and all that. So you had to give reasons for stopping people and that sort of thing. So we looked like old school officers, and I willingly took on their sort of way they policed. Yeah.
So you rounded up this gang of yobs, and as a group of police officers, you basically beat them up.
Yeah.
And did they know why it was happening?
Yes.
Yeah.
They knew why it was happening. They were told why it was happening. And there used to be a thing called the reception committee, and that basically was if someone assaulted a police officer, they would call up on the radio for a reception committee. So everyone would go back to the police station, and when this individual was brought in, he would get smacked from one end of the custody office to the other by everyone on the police station. I'm not condoning that, but that's what happened back in those days. So let's get it right now. I'm not condoning it. It's wrong. It's illegal, etc., etc. But this is the way policing was to a certain extent, not everywhere. I'm not going to say that every police station did that or every police officer did that, but it comes back down to we were protecting the uniform ourselves. And back then, Paul Condon, who was a police commissioner before I went to the Met, but he said there noble cause corruption was an issue within many police forces because police officers were so pissed off with the way criminals got away in courts, and it made them turn to two types of criminality in the police. One is bent for self, which is your liaison with criminals and you're supplying information for them. And getting paid for that and giving them information. They're giving you information on stuff and you're acting upon their information for their benefit and so on and so forth. And then there's bent for the job, which is sort of if you'll see a an individual who's been nicked multiple times for burglary and he's out at 2 a.m, he's got no good reason to bet. You know he's bang at it, but you just can't get him on that occasion. So they'll just say, I'll just see him on the door handle, or I'll see him pulling out a window and lift him, take him off the streets.
And was that, like, at that point in time, was that would you have thought of that back then as being corrupt? Or do you think that the officers who were...
No, not at the time. No. That's what I'm saying. It's corrupt. There's different types of corruption, isn't there?
Would the officers that were sort of doing that, would they have seen it as they were making a positive... We know he's doing it.
Nowadays, you'd call it safeguard in the community. Yeah, and these individuals, and I make no bones about it, I have to say, because I'll get people piping up saying they're innocent people. The individuals that I ever came across and dealt with were not innocent people. They were serial criminals. They were sex cases. They were paedophiles, as we call them, nonces. They were horrible, horrible people. And unfortunately, what the public, unless you're dropped in as a police officer and see the true evil that can be inside a human being, you will never understand what's out there, what you could be standing next to at a bus stop. And my first few years, I saw all kinds of stuff that really changed my attitude, with sex offenders and, domestic violence. Back in them days, women didn't really have a support network. They would get a clump from the husband, we'd turn up and they'd tell us, she don't want to make a complaint. And then what do we do? Well, no, we're not going anywhere, mate. If you hit your missus, we're going to hit you. So they'd get a clump.
Right.
And that's what happened.
What, so you turn up to the place, you're in their house?
It's a black eye. Why should a woman get a black eye and a busted nose from somebody who's pissed sitting in front of a Friday night out and he thinks it's not acceptable? Back in these days now, we didn't have everything else. So we might say we're going to nick him for something, make something up, sort on police, and get him out of the house.
Right.
Yeah, give the woman an opportunity to have a bit of breathing space. If she wants to make a complaint, she can. We're taking you out of the house one way or another. But let's see how you feel, being helpless. Let's see how you feel, get taken a clump, and there's nothing you can do about it.
And would people like that not complain afterwards? Would they not?
No, this is what I'm saying. In them days, you wouldn't get that many complaints. And if anyone did try and pipe up, the inspector back in the day had the sort of power to say, just piss off.
Wow.
And but what I'm trying to do is compact many years of different scenarios into a small period of time. It wasn't like we was going out doing this, that, and vigilante. I mean, some people will say, he's a thug, he's a vigilante. Maybe I was both of them things. Legally it was wrong, but morally it's a different. In some people's eyes, it's different. But these attitudes were formed over a period of time through experience of seeing things and people and dangerous people, very dangerous people.
And so when you gave the two types of corruption, the examples a minute ago, one is basically for personal gain, and one is basically for more like
bridging the gap, we call it.
Okay,
bridging the gap for evidence. Yeah,
right, bridging the gap for evidence. Would you? It sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like, did you see what you were doing as morally correct? Like, you would never do something where you'd steal money, for example, or would you?
Well, we'll get onto that. I did.
Yeah.
So I started off.
I guess my question is, like, would you see that kind of policing, what you described as old school policing, as a moral way to safeguard the community rather than a way of taking law into your own hands for your own benefit?
Yeah, it's all right for people to, and I'm being straight down the line. I don't care what people think of me. I've got to be honest. But I'm sitting there, I'm just going to I'm an angel with a dirty face. That's why I say it.
Okay.
I'm not going to sit here and try and make myself look good, because there's not much good in some of the stuff I've done. But morally, like you said, in my eyes and that of my colleagues, we were taking people off the streets. Like I said to you, the prolific burglar, he is out to do burglaries. He's out at 2 a.m. Right? We know what he's up to. He knows what he's up to. We're going to get him off the streets one way or another. We're going to use the Ways and Means Act. We're going to lift him for whatever we can and get him locked up. Then we know he's not doing any burglaries that night. And that's what happened. It's about, how can I put it? So these people that we were dealing with, they were on a regular basis committing crime, and every now and again we'd catch them, and every again we wouldn't. But we know that's their craft. If you speak to and you have old school criminals, they'll tell you the same thing. That's their craft. It's the name of the game. But back in sort of the early 90s, I'm not saying it was sweeping across the board. It was like-minded individuals from certain police stations. So I was in a divisional police station, but around us was South Ockenden, Corringham and Tilbury police stations. They was like the satellite nicks attached to Grace. So there's 4 police stations there, yeah? Now we knew everyone in every nick near enough. So we knew who the grasses were, who the plebs were, and so everyone knew everyone, yeah? So you're a name in Essex, but when you go to Met, you're just a number. So you might know that only a few, you know you nick a lot of them, but the nicks are so big, you're not going to know everyone. And so it's a very tight unit. But when I talk about sort of using unnecessary force on certain individuals, you've got to remember that the most sort of the best tactical option a police officer's got is his gob. Mm-hmm. So I wasn't, in my eyes, I only did what I did because I felt it was right. I never went looking at to beat people up coming out of pubs and all that shit. I'm not interested in that. I'd rather ask you to get in my police car than have a fight with you because it's safer for you and it's safer for me. So you had to have good communication skills. You had to be able to talk to people in Essex because you could be waiting 10 minutes, 15 minutes for backup because there's not as many of you. Yeah. So if you come out with an attitude, if you haven't got good communication skills, you could be getting a kicking for 10 minutes. And that's, I think, the problem with the Met, because there's so many officers. There are a lot more officers in the Met than anywhere else. People with bad attitudes get in. Don't get me wrong, there's people with bad attitudes. People say I had a bad attitude in Essex, but in the Met, though, I work with people that start a fight in an empty room. You know, they just didn't have the communication skills, and a lot of that came down to lack of confidence in their physical selves. I'm a firm believer that a police officer should be as fit as they can be, not only for their own well-being, but for their family's well-being, for their colleagues' well-being, and for the public's well-being. Because if someone's getting their head kicked in down the road and you're a fat blob, you by the time you get there, you're going to be keeling over yourself. Or if you're an orange on a toothpick, you're that skinny, and you can't take care of yourself, let alone anyone else, you're a liability. So I'm a firm believer in if you put that uniform on, you should be fit enough to do the job. Yeah? Because as I said to you, you could be lying, I'd rather have to defend my actions in a court of law than be laying on a mortuary slab. Yeah. That's how I see it. So I was one of the top self-defence instructors in the Met. So I sort of tried to engage and say, look, you know, boxing and sort of stuff like that, it's physically fit, but a lot of police officers have never took a punch. So if you go into a violent situation, you think it says police, you're invincible. No, you're not. No, you're not. You know? And so I've seen it. Police officers too frightened to get out of cars when it's all going off and people are getting flung about because they've not got the confidence.
Well, you say there that about being an instructor in the Met, defence instructor in the Met. So we've jumped ahead a little bit. So you did eventually end up in the Met then, didn't you? Yeah,
I mean, I think we should cover the sex cases bit first.
Okay, let's do it.
So my sort of entry into, I suppose, noble cause corruption. Yes. Was as I said, I was a willing participant. I wasn't a muppet. I was willing. Do you know what I mean? I'm not going to sit there and say, oh, I had to follow on because I'd be bullied. No, that's not right. I felt the same way as these individuals did, these other officers. You know, I felt anger. And I remember my first dealing with a sex case, a paedophile, and he'd got a lot of previous for offences against children. And this is my first now experience with one of these types of individuals. And he got caught putting giving a 9-year-old child a note through the school fence. And it basically said how he wanted to have sex with her and what he wanted her to do to him. Okay. Right? So, you know, when I said to you, there's people that the nearest you come to evil is sort of something like that. Well, this is what it was. I couldn't comprehend a man like doing that, you know what I mean? Let alone the other stuff he'd done. And then that was one incident of this individual come to light. And then another time I was on a night duty and we got a call to Grays railway station that there's a youth laying on the tracks. So obviously it's a high grade incident, isn't it? So we rushed down there. I think he was 14 or 15, this lad, intoxicated. He was crying. He was laying on the side of the railway tracks. So we grabbed him up and he said, I just want to die. I just want to die. So it's only a youngster, really, you know, obviously kicking off, you know, it was quite emotional. So we got him back to the police station and he sort of told us he was under the social services. So we got them out and they didn't tell us anything at first. So we let them go, just said, all right, look, he's obviously got issues, whatever. Anyway, he's suddenly become every night he's tearing up the high street, he's nicking out the shops. So we lifted him again, took him back to the police station again. And this time the social services had sort of told us what the situation was. And basically his dad and a number of other paedophiles been convicted of murdering a schoolboy and horrifically abused him before they killed him. And this boy the dad had passed him around to all his mates.
Oh, God.
And he'd been horrifically abused. And then you realise how horrible, how evil, like I said, how can an individual do that? That's these type of people that are out there. So as far as I was concerned, that's when I sort of deviated from the script. We're meant to be impartial, police without fear or favour, but I just couldn't do it. And I remember seeing this individual that I'd previously said to you about, the kid with a note.
Yeah.
I was on foot patrol in Grays High Street, and I see this piece of shit. And it was like Friday night, whatever he was hovering about, and I thought, you think you're funny, don't you, mate? I just in my head. And I just went over and told him, what did you say to me? He said, what? I said, what did you say to me? Boof, you're nicked, I'm having you. I just made it up.
Right.
Called the police van down, he got a clump in the back of the van, got him to the police station, gave him another clump, locked him up for section 4, I can't remember, assault on police, something I made up. Got him off the street. I didn't want him on the streets. And after that, every time I see that individual or another one, another sicko, he was a little fella, and what his little thing was, he'd go into women's clothes shops and he'd go, I'm buying a wet dress for my wife and I just need to try it on because she's my son. So he'd go in and start masturbating. Then he'd call the sales assistant over, and as she opened the curtains, he'd be finishing.
Yeah.
And these types of pond life, that's what they are, they're pond life. People say to me, but they should be protected under the rights of... No, ordinary decent people get protected, yeah? You've failed in your duty as an ordinary decent person. So now you're not subject to protection under our laws, as far as I was concerned, and that of other colleagues. So every time we saw these people, we'd stop them and turn them over and abuse them and invariably beat them up, stitch them up and lock them up. That's what we used to do.
Did they know why you were doing it?
Yeah, all the time, all day long.
So they would eventually become scared of, I suppose, being in public
This is what I'm coming on to. So what we did with these individuals was we made them, every time they came out of their pits, they were looking around their shoulders. They were more busy worrying about us than they were about committing other offences. That's how we saw it. The more pressure we put on them, and they knew, every time they see a police car, they started trembling. Now you know what it's like to be a victim. Have that. That's how we perceived it. And like I said, it was when the opportunity arose. It wasn't every time. We weren't going out on vigilante missions. We were doing normal policing. But these people were on our radar. And that's, as I say, that was just another sort of piece of my corruption.
What happened there? You sort of started to, I feel like you started a story about the boy on the railway tracks, about his dad. Was there an end to that story?
No, we just, he basically, I went sort of after when he came on the radar, I think he sort of, what we would do with him, we'd get calls, we'd just go to the shops and square it up. Right. Just say, we're not arresting him, just whatever, we wouldn't arrest him anymore, we tried to look after him and just took him back to the social services whenever we could. But he was messed up, but again, back in the early 90s, it wasn't, there's not as much care or sort of in society now for individuals like that. That's what I'm saying about women who used to get battered and stuff like that. It was sort of, there wasn't much care. It's like us as police officers, now you've got, you've got all sort of people that can look after and sit you down and talk to you about how you feel and all the rest of it. Back then, if you did that, you'd get the taken out of you.
Well, were you concerned for yourself? Like, were you worried about what would happen if it was found out that you were doing this stuff?
Do you know what? No, because I was with people who I trusted, and we were all in it together. And as I say, even we knew what people were doing and whatever else. But like I said, it wasn't a frequent, like we're doing this every day. It was every other now and again. We say, that's one of them, let's have a word. I was come back to when I dealt with that body, that person.
Yes.
Because don't forget, what I'm trying to explain to you is there's a lot of different emotions you feel when you get being in the place. So, people can sit there and, he's put that uniform on, he's got a God complex. No, I was just a normal person just because you put a uniform, it doesn't change you into this fantastic human being. You're still the same person you was. But now what you've got to do is you've got to face all these different feelings that's coming flying at you thick and fast, like perverts and women being beaten up and fatal car accidents and stuff like that. It's a lot to take in when you're a youngster.
But what do you think is the difference with you because obviously a lot of people would have become a policeman and put that uniform on and not gone down that route.
Yeah, and that's right. I failed in my duties as a police officer. I'm not denying that. I failed. I should have staying impartial, but unfortunately I wasn't strong enough. And you could say my colleagues weren't strong enough either. But I think what you need to understand is in the 80s and 70s and 80s, that was sort of part of the norm, that sort of policing. Do you know what I mean? It was like, that's how it was. And then it was dying out gradually. So I probably caught the tail end of it. What we'll come to when I finally did get the tail end of it. But that story I was telling you about my emotions. So I was with my inspector, I was driving him about, and we got a call to suicide at a soap powder factory. And so I went down there. And imagine a big warehouse, and it's got like a train track going around it, and you know, like a coal train, those sort of carriages. Well, it had them on it, and there was like a chute that came right down to the top of the tip of the carriage, the sort of trolley things, and it would shoot powder in the thing. Anyway, so we've gone in there, and these two gentlemen who were working on this floor were completely messed up. They were crying, they were wobbling. Basically, they'd come in and their friend was laying on the floor with no head. So they initially thought he'd committed suicide. They were traumatised. We couldn't really get anything out of them. I don't blame them. You know, and I think this was my first dead body. And I was like, oh no, don't faint, don't throw up, don't faint, because I'll get terrorised. Because that's that, you know. Yeah. There was no touchy, feely. It was all, you know, and. I went in my inspector, and sure enough, there was his body laying on the floor with no head, and blood everywhere, and he was laying face down. All the machines were switched off. We couldn't look around. Where are the heads? We thought he'd blown his head off or something. We couldn't find no gun. So it's all right.
His whole head was missing.
Yeah, from where's it? Yeah. So I think the bottom jaw was still there. And I could see his brain. I think it was his brain. There was something sticking out the top. I didn't want to pay too much attention to it, to be honest with you. And anyway, so he said to me, right, Paige, you stay and guard that body. And he put on my other colleague downstairs. There was like fire exit stairs. He put him on the next flight down to stop anyone from coming up. So I was on the way. Like I said, I was only a youngster, and I was looking at this thinking. And then things started going through my mind. I thought, has he moved? Has he flinched there? And it's just weird things. Like I was starting to get the wind up, you know, a bit frightened. And all of a sudden it went, rah, 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 it started making this like noise, and I shit myself. I burst through the doors, jumped down the flight of stairs. I literally thought it was waking up. Just grabbed my colleague and said, there's something going on up there, you need to come up there. He goes, what's the matter? I said, the thing was talking. And went up there, and he's looking, what are you on about? And he had a radio on, didn't he? And someone had called on the radio downstairs, and it's come out on his fucking radio. Honestly, I thought I was going to have a heart attack. Of course, he got on the radio then and told everyone what I'd done. I got terrorised, absolutely terrorised for that. You know what I mean? There wasn't no, oh, you're right, yeah, it's your feelings. It was like, oh. And then I started thinking afterwards, because of that, what happened was they called the scenes of crime down to take pictures. And in them days, it was CID, it wasn't civilians, it was CID blokes. 2 old specs turned up. They started taking pictures and said, right, now go and find the head, you. Because I shit myself, I'm now having the one has to find the head. So I switched on the machine, and when I'm climbing about on this machine, and then I found it, and his head was just resting on the top of the machine with his mouth open like that, and one of his eyes had popped out, and he was just staring at me.
God.
And I climbed, I said, it's up there, I found it. I was trying not to be sick. I was like, but it was so horrific, it was like a dummy, do you know what I mean? It just didn't look real because it was so horrific. So the Socko boy gets up, takes the pictures and all the rest of it. Ambulance had been and gone, there was nothing they can do. They said, right, we need to get the head down. He goes, you'll have to get that down. I went, I'm not touching that. They wanted me to get up there and physically get the head down. I said, there's no way I'm doing that. All to punish me for, you know what I mean? And anyways, I didn't do it in the end. I don't know.
So what had happened to him?
Basically, we think, he'd only just come, this is what I started thinking when I talk about emotions. I started thinking about, when we found out he'd just come back off a 2-week holiday with his wife, been to Jamaica, wherever he'd been. And so he'd obviously had a nice time and it's gone on. I was thinking, I started thinking about his poor wife. And that's what got to me. Then I'm thinking about the impact behind him. He's gone now. He was left behind. And that's what I was praying, don't send me round. Don't say, I can't deal with that. Go and speak to his wife. I couldn't do that. And they let some senior people there. But yeah, it looks like he's leaned in the machine for some reason and it's gone vump. It just took the top of his head off. But I never did find out. I've told this story before and people go, oh, why did you don't know? I never did find out whether or not he'd done it on purpose or whether it was an accident.
Yeah, I guess you'll never know.
You just move on. You don't get time to dawdle because the next job's come in and then something else happened. Do you know what I mean? And maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah.
You know, it's stuck with me, but I moved to different sort of things.
You don't dwell on it.
You don't. Some people do. I mean, I was with colleagues who had mental illness over certain things, and they went completely mad. You know, and they didn't really have a network back then.
So that's quite an intense introduction to that job. Everything you've just given me there. And so you started off in Essex, in this smaller place.
Yeah.
And eventually you did move into the Met, didn't you? And how was that? How was it different?
See, that was a lot different because when I was in Essex, I knew all the little bags and they knew me, and so you knew where to go. If something happened, you go to their house or you go there, whatever. So you knew you had a mutual understanding. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when I'm saying, oh, this person got to come or whatever else for those specific reasons, but you also needed to be someone who people would trust and know, well, he's a straight talker, he's a straight shooter, mm-hmm. so we can rely on him. So sometimes if I arrest someone, say, look, just say what you got to say. We'll get back to Nick and I'll sort you out quick. If you want to about it, I'll keep you in there all day and all night if I have to. So you have you've got to use your discretion sometimes when you're in police. I used it a lot more when I was in the Met because, as I said to you, I worked with some fantastic people, and I wasn't the best copper in the world. I was not a plodder, but I came from a wealthy family, and I was always looking to be a millionaire, which I achieved. But so the police wasn't my first love, if that makes sense. I was in the job, but I wasn't married to it. Mm-hmm. So whereas you get people that we call them job, and what that means is it's all about the place. Mm-hmm. All my friends are place. Everything I do is for that place. Well, no, that's where you go wrong. You've got to have a life outside that organisation, yeah, because otherwise it's the them and us culture, isn't it? Mm-hmm. So I went to Marylebone, and I realised quickly, and as I said to you about, there were people with fantastic places, but there was also plums there who caused trouble for no reason. You have to start fighting an empty room, like I said to you, and you're having to trying to deal with the way my style of policing was quite direct and fair enough. You know, if I'd stop a car and there was four fellas in it, and what they'd do is they'd just chuck their weed on the floor straight away. Well, if there's too much to let it go, you'd have to say, right, one of you's just got to come with us, have a little chat, and then just pick the stuff up, come out, and I'll nick you. Otherwise, I'm going to nick all four of you. Mm. So let's just have a bit of leeway and discretion. Yeah, we don't have to nick all four of you, but if you want to be funny, we'll just do a lot. We'll just take a lot of you. And was that you?
What would the official line have been that you should have done? For arrest all four, or were you allowed to make those?
You could do, because back then, cannabis, you was arrestable offence. Yeah. Not now; it's a fixed penalty or whatever pants it is now. Do you know what I mean? Which is fair enough. But the way I looked at it, especially if I stopped a youngster in the street and I say, and he'd have a bit of weed on him or a couple of spliffs, I'd rather just say, look, just chuck it on the floor and tread on it and it's off. Because why do I really need to ruin this kid's future for a couple of drags just because I want to put a body on the score sheet? Because that's what you had. You had people called thief catchers, police officers. They'd nick you for walking on the cracks of the pavement. I wasn't like that. I was sort of, I was a plodder. Yet, like I said, I'd arrest you. I'd arrest people. Don't get me wrong, but I felt, would I really want to be nicked for like that? No. So let's try and have a bit of, as I said to you, talk and work it out. And that's how I policed. But then there was other officers, like I said, would cause a problem. And sometimes you'd think, mate, you've put me in a position now because I'm going to have to write my notes to back you up, and you're a tosser. And then it was a good few years I was at Marylebone. And then, I saw alcoholism is another thing that affects police officers. And I remember one officer, there used to be a section S, which was sort of attached to Marylebone Police Station. And there was one officer in there, he was in a bad way. And again, back then there wasn't that much sort of help
support
there is now. And he ended up, we got a call from tourists saying someone's on us from the top of a building. And when we went up there, it was him.
Jesus.
We obviously didn't do nothing, we just took him down and looked after him, but he needed help bad. And
there wasn't a process to put.
There wasn't really. No, it was just looked after and just bring, quiet, get him back in his room and tie him up, clean him up, and leave him alone. That sort of, it was looking after, but not looking after. If that makes sense,
Putting a plaster on it.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't, as I say, it wasn't so touchy, feely. That's the bottom line. It was, I think in terms of that, but it was still look after you. If you was as you was getting on in service, they'd stick you in a control room or put you in custody office rather than pounding the beat, working for a living, tuck you away to see your last few years out. So you was looked after.
So you doing your time in your Met, and were you enjoying it at that point?
Yeah, do you know what? There's a story I want to say that I missed out. So I went back in Essex, you're talking about sex offenders.
Yeah.
And because it comes back to haunt me in Marylebone.
Okay.
So one job was in Essex. We were driving around. We got a call. A man's been robbed at knife point, been stabbed in the hand. So we go looking for this suspect, little ginger thing he was, looked like Cat Weasel. Caught him, and he was a horrible little thing. He'd had previous for locking a kid in a cupboard, right, in his room, which was a shithole anyway. But this was previously we dealt with him. Anyway, we caught him. He's meant to have had 6 or 7 quid on that. He's robbed off this man, stabbed the man in, and got the knife off him. And when we went back to his house to do a Section 8 search, we found loads of women's underwear on his bed, and you understand what he's done to them. I don't need to go into graphic detail, what he'd been doing to them, yeah? Then we find out in the crime complaints that all the women's washing had been going missing off their lines in the local area where this little lived. So they'd been going around nicking all the... And that was the warning signs right there. I'm thinking, right, he's definitely a wrong one. I said to the custody side, because back in them days, we could keep you in custody. You didn't have to ring up the CPS and they made the decision. So it could be, your skipper or the governor. So I said, don't let him out. There's something not right about this bloke. He's a weirdo. I said, there's something not right about him. He said, nah, just bail him. I said, Sarge, don't bail him. Anyway, he ended up bailing him. And they never turn up for court, whatever else. He got charged. No, he got charged. Did he get charged? He got charged, I think, but he never turned up. Charged and bailed, but never turned up for court. I'm now in Marylebone. And unbeknownst to me, it came on the news, and that's how I found out this individual had gone into I think it was a Cumberland hotel. It was a hotel at the back of Marylebone police station. He'd gone in there and raped a woman.
Oh, God.
Raped a woman and got caught in West Sussex in a stolen MR2, I think. And that played on my mind. So had we locked this thing up, that might not have happened, because it was literally, I moved to the Met and then this all kicked off.
So would you, when you hear stuff like that, would you have blamed yourself at the time?
No, what could I do? I'm a PC. I can't force someone to do, like the sergeant, to try, like, keep him in custody. Do you know, I tried my best.
Would you feel frustration?
Yeah, I did, yeah, because I felt in the back of my head, maybe this wouldn't have happened. If we'd have just got him locked up, he might have got 2 or 3 years. He probably would have done for robbery and stabbing someone and whatever else, and theft of the knickers and all. That was the indication that there was that sort of situation there with the knickers and the bras told you was some form of deviant, plus locking up a kid in a cupboard. You know, the signs are there. You know, and then the robbery, and then that's what he's gone and done. He's gone and raped a woman.
And with the Essex police force you were with the kind of old school policing, like giving people, like beating people up basically, or what did you call it? Bridging the
gap.
Bridging the gap. Did that continue in the Met for you?
Yeah, it did to a degree. I mean, it was. So I'm not going to tar officers with the same brush, because, like I said, there was good officers out there. I'm not a vigilante. You know, whatever you think of me, I just did what I did. You know, I got into this zone with the sex cases. I'm not a hero. I don't think I'm a hero. You know, what I did was wrong. It was illegal. I understand that. Like I say, I'm going to go back to them days. What's socially acceptable? It wasn't, but it was turn a blind eye. Yeah. The difference is now you're going to get caned if you do something like that, and rightly so. If you put the uniform on, you take the oath. If you take liberties, then you've got to pay the consequences, haven't you? You know, if you dish it out, better be prepared to take it. As a police officer, you know what the score is. It doesn't matter if you was doing something you thought was the right reasons. If it's not in black and white, then don't do it. You know, I'm not advocating, you know, officers to go. It's not that world anymore. That your senior officer would just say, don't do it again. Stop it. Or we'll sort this. Don't worry. That don't happen no more. Not very rarely. But what I realised, as I said to you, in Essex, you're a name, everyone knows you. In the Met, you're just a number, because there's so many of you, as I said. So that idea of being able to do things because you trust everyone trusts you, melts into a different sort of situation. It's a minefield. Yeah, you might have a number of people who are like you or like-minded, and you all stick together, band of brothers, whatever you want to call it. But there's always one, and that happened to me. It came around and bit me on the backside. So Friday night, Saturday night, get a call to Oxford Circus train station, tube station. 2 British Transport Police officers had just been severely beaten up by 4 yobs. Again, they'd gone down there to tell these lads to go home, because they were terrorising customers waiting for trains and that, and they'd switched on them. Beat them up pretty bad. Right, cowardly thing to do. They weren't that. They didn't know what they were doing either. Do you know what I mean? They were just thugs. And so, of course, my colleague was driving a van, a Sherpa van back in them days. It had just the bench seats in the back. It didn't have a cage like it does, and then cameras and all that sort of palaver. So we've put one of these scumbags in the back of the police van, and I've got jumped in the back. But unbeknownst to me, a female officer from Holborn Police Station has got in the passenger seat of the van. Now, as I said to you, if you're going to do things, you make sure you know who it's your people surrounding you. Well, I didn't know she'd got in there. So I had a conversation with this individual, and I basically said, we're going to have a straightener. And I took the cuffs off him.
Can you explain what a straightener
is? We're going to have a fight. You know, he was big and brave, beating up 2 police officers, and that's one-on-one. And that's what I did. I don't profess to be a hard nut. These stories, don't forget, I'm condensing them over a long period of time. But these are the stories that stick out to me, what happened to me. Everyone knows everything I've said to you now. My colleagues know I'm telling the truth. Obviously, I'm not going to name them. But, you know, there's no contention that I'm lying in any way, shape or form. I'm being totally honest down the road. I don't care what people think of me. I've done what I've done, and I'm just being honest. And on this particular occasion, we had a fight, and he ended up getting knocked out. But what had happened is the woman police officer had heard something about the straightener, seen the geezer with his cuffs off, and then obviously see him unconscious. So she reported it. This idiot, who I had a tough tussle with, got charged with assault on police, never mentioned the one-on-one we had. I think he was old school. He obviously knew what the situation was. I explained to him why. I didn't say,
Was he happy to do it?
Yeah, he was still leery. Yeah, he thought he was going to beat another one up.
Right.
So he thought, yeah, come on then. Well, so we did. Don't worry, could have gone the wrong way. He could have knocked me out, and then we'd have all been in the So yeah, that incident, and then she reported me, and I remember Sergeant comes and goes, yeah, you got some shit coming your way. I said, what is it? He goes, WP's in the back of that van. I went, oh no. So what I did was I wrote my statement out. So I had it written down. So Anthony Crutchin will come and see you, and they'll say, just stop, before we go into the interview, let's just have a little chat off the record, see what we can work out. But they're all mic'd up. Yeah, never trust an anti-corruption copper. Yeah. And they couldn't walk straight if their life depended on it at the end of the day. And so he's come up to me, he's gone, just tell us what. I said, sorry, sir, I can't. That's my witness statement, what I've already wrote out through my statement. He goes, yeah, but what about? I said, there's no what about, sir. All due respect, I can't remember anything. That's what I can remember. I went, all right. He said, well, listen. He said, just so you know, the individual never made a complaint, and I'm not going to go and speak to him. He said it was the officer who made the complaint. He said what they're doing there at training school is they're teaching officers, if they see something or they hear something they don't like, to report it. Obviously, I had the ump at the time, but that's how it is. Life moves on. If that's what people are being told, then rightly so. If you hear something, you see something you don't like, then report, isn't it? You know, why should I be someone who, or us as a, organisation are full of dinosaurs like I was back then, control an environment? You can't control an environment when it's moving along, and society's moving. So he said to me, I know what you did and I know why you did it. He said, but you can't do things like that anymore. He was a chief inspector. And to be honest, he was all right. He's the only one that was ever been all right. And I understood that. And he gave me the message loud and clear. Your time is up.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I thought, I've had enough of this. That's me.
So it was like an unofficial, like, you're outdated, it's time to...
Yeah, basically, your time's up.
Right.
Your time's up. He knew what I'd done. He could have made life worse for me. He could have gone after the bloke and said, look, we know what's happened. But he didn't. He said, I'm leaving it. I'm putting it to bed. And that was my warning. See you later. And I've just thought, you know what, I've had enough. I'm going to make a call and get out of here and find a nice little number where I can just do my own thing.
So you were looking for somewhere else that you could experience the camaraderie that you had in the police.
Yeah, old school, get back to old school, yeah.
Get back to old school, and you found that, I believe, in Royal Protection.
Royal Protection, yeah.
Yeah. So how do you move from the Met to Royal Protection?
From what I previously told you, from what you know, it's who you know. That same situation. I mean, like I said, I thought, you know what, I've had enough of the streets, make a call. And I remember he said, yeah, come up, because you earn loads of money. He goes, it'd be sweet, you'll love it up here. He goes, no one messes around with us up here. And so I had an interview, and basically on the interview board you get 2 officers, 2 sergeants and 2 civilians. And what they didn't know was the 2 civilians is the day before I'd be given all the answers to the questions that I was about to be asked, and all the pictures of all the people, all the royal family that I was going to be asked to identify. Because that's how it was.
Well, they just went, we want you to get past the test to hear the answers.
Yeah, that's what happened. I went up the day before for a look round and I went, yeah, right, okay, this is how we're going to do it. Yeah, no, sweet.
Wow.
And the best thing was, they was asking me all these questions. These two civilians were going, oh, he knows a lot about all the roles, doesn't he? Because, no, we should be in. Yeah, he knows everything. I thought, only because I got the fucking answers to the questions. So, yeah, I did this, passed with flying colours. Yeah.
Well, obviously.
Yeah, I think they thought I was a stalker.
Yeah, right. And any guilt about that or just, no?
No. Why would I feel guilty about getting on a unit? That's how it worked back in them days.
Because that sounds, to an outsider, that sounds like it'd be very hard to get into.
Right.
It sounds like the top tier of bodyguard.
Right. Yeah, no, there's different levels. I mean, what you've got to understand is, I mean, it would be hard to get into if you turned up for a day and we'd have a look at you, and if you was a complete plum, you weren't getting in. If you was something about you and you was an ex-SO90 or CO19 or ex-counter-terrorism, because that's what happened. You get a lot of people like me disillusioned with the actual police work, and then they have a work out. Now, do it on a Friday night. They want to stand in Buckingham Palace and earn lots of money, or do I roll around on the floor of a drunk? Well, we know what the answer is, don't we? And I remember when we used to drive past Buckingham Palace and see a couple of royal officers on the gate, and we used to go, look at them numpties, what a boring job. But what they were doing was, when I realised, when I went in and I told that story to some of these fellas, they went, yeah, and what we were doing was looking at you, going, look at them knobheads, working for a living. And they were right, they were paying their mortgages off early, we was working, we was grafting.
But when you got in there, so was it a case of like you were on the gates, or were you actually with the royals? Like, were you meeting royals?
We met them all the time because it's their home. So they were in and out all the time. And as I say, my famous stories about Prince Andrew, the Queen, Prince Philip.
And what were they like as individuals?
I remember when I first met the Queen and Prince Philip, it didn't really go down too well, because when she comes in, if you look at the front of the palace to the right, I say when she used to come in, there's a big wooden gate to the right of the palace. That's what the entrance the Queen uses. Only she can use it, not Prince Philip, not Prince Andrew, only the Queen. Or I think Prince Andrew could, because he was the heir to the throne. There's a lot of old-fashioned sort of rules and regulations. It's very archaic, but that's how it works, you know. So you've got the Duke of Edinburgh's door, I think he's got his own door. The Duke of York's door, he's got his own door into the palace. And I was on the garden gate one day. And basically, when the Queen comes, the protection officer, people are going to go, hey, he's giving away secrets again like they did with the last time I spoke. So listen, this was 30 years ago. Yeah, you'll see the car come in and you aren't going to stop it. It's as simple as that. Or you can try, but you're going to get shot. So anyway, they'll give us a call to say, purple ones, well, she's dead now, so it doesn't really matter, does it? Purple ones, 5 minutes. So that means get the garden gate ready, because the Queen must not stop. That vehicle, as soon as it comes onto the forecourt, is going straight through into the garden. It sounds like an easy job, yeah, but I f***ed it up, right? I can't remember. I was on the phone. I was either on my mobile or I was on the post phone, and I was talking, and I could hear a load of shouting down the radio, and I realised they were calling me 119, open the gates, open the gates. As I've opened the gates, the car was sat there. I was like, I'd only just come off of the streets. You know what I mean? I'm there looking after a gate, not rolling around on a Friday night now. I'm looking after a gate. So I open the gate, and as they've come, I've saluted, and the Queen's looking at me, frowning, and feels Prince Philip shaking his head at me. I can hear him muttering, probably a swear words, but and the PPO was looking at me in the front seat again. Like, he looked like he was going to burst into tears. And as soon as that car stopped, his little feet got out of that car, he ran to me. He goes, what are you doing? What have you done? I'm thinking, what? Yeah, the impact. You know, you're coming off streets dealing with murders, robberies, rapes, and I've just been late opening a gate. What's going on? Well, when the old term falls from the top downwards, it fell on me.
Really?
It buried me. Yeah, I wasn't allowed to go on that post for about 2 weeks. I had the governors running out, the skipper running out. What you done? All running around like headless chickens. Yeah. So they wouldn't let me go on that gate for it. And then I realised there's a different sort of atmosphere in this mob. Can
you tell us a little bit about your interactions with Prince Andrew?
Right, so, yeah, because the Queen, I'll say straight away, was a really lovely lady. I've said it before and I'll say it again. She would look after her staff. As I said before, you don't really talk to the Queen, she talks to you, but that's just how it is. That's a system that's been there for years and years. But she would interact, you know. Other members of the royal family would just ignore you. Prince Philip had a gob on him. He would leave his window open about that much. at night. It was always open. Don't matter winter, it never. I don't think it was broke. It just never moved. And I remember 2 squaddies walking on the gravel. There's like a gravel surround in the back of the palace. They were only youngsters, and they were walking on. They were kicking the gravel. And he's obviously heard it, and he's opened the window. He's going, "Get off that gravel!" And we've realised who it was, and they were like, "Oh no!" I shrunk down in my post because I thought, "Oh, it's going to go for me next." So I hid, and then when he'd gone, I said to him, "Just go." And then he'd done no more. He's gone and called the guard room up.
Right.
Prince Philip, because he had a phone in he'd called a control room up if he was pissed off, or he'd called a guard room, and the regimental sergeant major marched out, marched them straight out. He probably marched them straight into the brig or whatever they call it. Yeah, and after that we were told not to walk on the gravel at night. So we had to tiptoe to get to our security posts. Yeah, so he could, that's probably where Prince Andrew gets his mouth from. And I've always said, and I've said it in a previous interview, if Prince Philip has stuffed a bar of soap in Prince Andrew's mouth the first time he told a servant to f*** off, a lot of this probably wouldn't happen. Because he was the most rude, obnoxious, it was a plum basically. And he had no regard for anyone which he perceived to be below him. Right. We were all treated much the same, servants, his own people. No one too frightened to call him out. Because where is it going to go? And people have said to me, "You were there, why didn't you do anything about it?" Right, so what am I going to do as a police officer? We can make complaints about it, the way he speaks to people. You know, if that was on the streets and he started gobbing off like that, he'd get folded in half like a piece of paper and put in the back of a police van. But this is Prince Andrew. I mean, the first time he told me to f*** off, I was like, "What? Prince Andrew's just, what?
Why did he tell you?
I can't remember what I did. I did something." He went, "Oh, f*** off." That was if the barriers wasn't open in time, you know, because some security barriers, and he used to fly along, he used to come at pace, he used to drive his own car, and he used to come at pace and catch the boys unaware, you know, on goals. And if they're not open, he goes, "Open that door, you buffoons." That was one of his little favourite words, "you buffoons." But yeah, he was just disliked. I mean, like I said, we made complaints, but who's going to go to the Queen? The commander? No one. Who's going to want to be the face? No one. You know, people got to understand that. It's easy to say, the armchair experts, "You should have done this. What should I have done?" I did what. I'll go in and I'll make more. They'll just say, "All right, tell me what to do. It's off back to division." That's what would happen. You'd get moved. You'd get kicked off the unit.
Am I right in thinking that did you ever see Ghislaine Maxwell?
I saw Maxwell, and as I've always said a number of times, she had the run of the palace. You know, our remit with her was just let her in and out and all the rest of it. Because of the way Prince Andrew treated us, you know, we would, and I've got to say, no other member of the royal family performed like he did. No one, guests, we didn't know who they were. When we were letting people, we didn't know who they were. I mean, we're meant to be there to provide security and protection. So therefore, at least play your part and give us the details of these individuals. And they were mainly young women, or all young women, but not young. They were in their 20s to late 20s or whatever it was. And, you know, well-to-do individuals. But if we'd stopped, as I previously said, if we stopped one of these individuals, we would get a mouthful.
So they'd approach, say, "I'm here to meet Andrew." Yeah. And then presumably you had to get some kind of radioing through.
Yeah, so basically what would happen is the palace is a working palace, 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. And then after sort of 5 o'clock, so any official engagements, like people come to see the Queen, Prince Philip, would be within those sort of time, and Prince Andrew, we'd have a book at the security post, and we'd get a call from the Privy Purse, which is an office within the palace. Police officers there and staff from different offices for members of the royal family would ring down with appointments. They would then give us the appointments on the outside post so we can write them in our books. So we know, such as John Smith's presenting himself, he's here to say he's got an 11 o'clock appointment with the Queen. "Show us your ID, mate." "Yeah, thank you very much." Ring up Privy Purse. "Yeah." Bring them up. "Yeah." Let them go through. Right. So there was a process. And even at night, when the Queen would have private guests, we'd know who they were. Yeah, they wouldn't just turn up and you're not getting in. That our job is to, protect the integrity of the palace and protect those that live within it. Therefore, those rules are there for a reason, obviously. But with Prince Andrew, his idea of it was his ass, and to be fair, he could have he wanted in. We couldn't stop. If he wanted someone in, you know, that's it. As far as his concern or the police are concerned, if he wants guests coming in and he refuses to give us their details, what can we do? Nothing. We have to, which is wrong. It's, we're breaching security. I think if the Queen knew what was happening, she would probably not be too impressed. But again, there was that fear, who's going to go up against Prince Andrew? Because you'd probably be looking for another job the next day. It wasn't a kind of environment where we all, you want to make a complaint? Yeah, we'll take that process through the system. There is no system. The system is you go out the back door. Yeah, so, all these people that make me laugh, they know what they're talking about. You don't know nothing. If you work in that environment, again, and in the police, then you don't know how processes work. And this was an archaic system. This was not a system that people would relate to, because we're talking hundreds of years, not just a few years. And, this is hundreds of years, and that's still the same system is still in place today. But with Prince Andrew, we would get told, his footman would say to us, he's got a guest coming at 6 o'clock. If you could just ring up to me and I'll come down and pick her up. All right? Name? We don't get the names. We give up asking because we just get abused. On one occasion, a female comes, attends the palace, front of the palace, and she's, I'm here to see Prince Andrew. And he'd just previously come in about half an hour before, I think. We tried to ring the footman, we couldn't get hold of him. So now we're in a position where we've got a guest here for Prince Andrew, but we can't get hold of the footman. So she said, look, we explained to her, really sorry, we just need to confirm. Because as you can appreciate, and I think I said it in the last interview, you do get people that, are mentally challenged. I've got mental issues, and we get them all the time. I'm here to see the Queen.
Yeah, sure.
You're not here to see the Queen, yeah? But people, they generally believe they're invited to whatever. So anyway, we said to this young lady, really sorry, we're going to have to hold you a minute while we just try and confirm. Anyway, she said, I'll ring Prince Andrew. So she got a mobilite and rang him. And he could see us out of his window because it faced on the forecourt. And he said, we could hear him, put one of the officers on the phone. And he said to a friend of mine, listen to me, you fat lardy ass. Let my guest in now, I'm going to come down there. What do you do?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's Prince Andrew talking to you like that. And he will come down. And then we're going to be in a right situation. All three of us are going to be pounding the beat together. So we let her in. And that was sort of after that was the way things were always. And I come back to that point because in doing that, this happened a few years ago, the same thing. Officers at Windsor, at his lodge in Windsor, he was in residence down there. A woman turns up in a black cab. She says, I'm here to see Prince Andrew, I'm his fiancée or something like that. The officers just let her straight in. Why? Because the same as us, because they knew what they'd get. So they ended up letting this, I think she was a stalker or, not someone who was mentally ill, into his private lodge, wandering around until they realised and managed to detain her.
So when you see that happening, you're like, I get why that's happened.
But I publicly said that is exactly what has happened, because those officers would get in trouble for something that Prince Andrew caused. And this was only a few years ago, and we've been saying this from like 20 odd years ago or more. And that's what I'm saying about things don't change. We can say, this is wrong, but who's going to listen to us?
And when you talk about things not changing, I mean, one of the big changes in the royals recently is the whole thing with Harry and Meghan.
Yeah.
And as someone that sort of was around the royal family, did you have a particular view on that whole thing?
Yeah, what I'll say before we go on to that is this is a hot subject, and people I try and stay at that middle of the road because I'm more worried about my electricity bill on tomatoes than I'm about these two. Do you know what I mean? But you say the wrong thing, they're on you like that, either side of you. Do you know what I mean? Pro Megans and all these cranks.
If you want.
All I was going to say, all I was saying that is, look, I think the problem with Prince Harry is it's if he wants to vent about his life and about family issues he's had, that's up to him. That's no one else's business. But I think people have issue with the amount of money that he's made off the back of it. I think that's where the issue is. He's obviously clearly and deeply hurt by events that have happened in his family, and everyone gets that. We all have things that go wrong, but he's decided to vent his anger in public. Is that right? Is that wrong? Is it for us to say? Not really. But people are commenting on the amount of money that's being made in that situation. I think that's the problem. And I think that's something that he has to deal with, That's
a very reasonable answer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that shouldn't get me too many... I've gone straight down the road. I'll still have some crank try and say something. I
think that's a fair answer. So the next chapter of your life after royal protection... would I be fair in saying that was ultimately
this is where it went down now?
This is where it went wrong, yeah.
I mean, what happened was, so I went to royalty, as I said, and I was trading stock market anyway, just before I went to royalty. So I was still into property and I stopped doing the cars. So I didn't really have time for that. And I started trading on the stock market. And I was quite popular on the relief as I was driving into work in expensive cars and stuff like that. So people knew I had a bit of money wrapped around me. And so you get reputations in all kinds of places, don't you? And so I started trading on the stock market, and I started trading on banks and water companies and stuff like that, sort of safe stocks initially. And I put quite a bit of money in because I had money. And like they say, money makes money. And I started making quite a bit of money. I thought, oh, this is all right. And I had time to do it because I was like, the environment I was in was not a high pressure environment now. I could go home and put my head on the pillow and sleep and not worry about court and paperwork and prisons and all that kind of stuff. I'm now in an environment where I'm protected. I'm in that bubble. And like I said, what's on this side of the thing we worry about, not that. So there was a lot of people up there for money making reasons. One had a catering firm, another one was a Elvis impersonator. I mean, it was all kinds of an eclectic mix of different sort of individuals. You know what I mean? Wanting to make a bit of money on the side. Over time, you could earn £70,000-80,000 a year up there if you wanted. You know what I mean? Going up to Scotland, Balmoral, Holyrood, all those sort of things attracted over time because the security level had to be a certain level. But I wasn't interested in that. I wasn't interested in overtime because I had my own money. I wanted to be with my family, my kids, my wife, and that sort of thing. And I started doing the stock market, and then a fella come up. He was a Tony Blair's protection officer, and he'd just been tenured out of his role. And so another one who was pissed off and thought, I'm just going to do a side swap and come over to Royalty and sit tight for him and see what goes on. Do you know what I mean? He didn't want to go back on the beat. He was a highly trained, skilled bodyguard. And he was into the stock market as well. So we used to share the pink sheets at the Evening Standard. And long story short, he identified a share one day. It was a recognition software. You know, like now when you go on the internet, you look for a pair of jeans and all of a sudden you get loads of pop-ups for jeans because they've identified that it was that sort of software recognition of what individuals are looking at. And he said to me, because I was with the Prime Minister, I went to a defence research lab, and the fellow who was taking over that company is about to take that company over. He used to run this. He said, I reckon there's going to go right through the roof. He goes, but don't put loads of money in, just put a few. Well, I'll put loads of money in. I think I put about 40 or 50 grand in. For a penny share at the time, I think it was like 40 or 50p. Anyway, within 2 or 3 weeks when the announcement came out of this full, it went from 40 or 50p to £4.50, £5.
Wow.
So I was like sitting on nearly £500,000. So that was, I blew straight through being a millionaire. I was a millionaire now. And I then got a £500,000 credit limit. I was with Halifax Share Dealing. So I was now trading up to £1 million a month on shares. I was making sometimes 20, 30 grand a week. You know, I bought my wife. My wife was down to earth. She didn't worry about nice things, but I bought her nice things because that's what I wanted to do. I was driving to work in £80,000 cars. I had 2 AMG Mercedes. I had an executive house. You know, I was smashing it. And again, people said to me, why didn't you just leave the place? I should have done, because I probably wouldn't have gone to jail. But because of the environment, as I said, it was nice to be in an environment where everyone's the same and you can have a laugh and stuff like that. And it was all going where I was going all over the world, spending thousands here, there and everywhere. And the true saying is money makes money. You know, I was making so much money.
Through investments? Through
buying and selling. I was doing, like I said, buying £500,000 worth of that stock. I'd only keep it a day, I might make £5,000. You know, it was madness, honestly. So what happened is I got drunk with money. I was ambitious, but then ambition turned to greed. And once you start turning greedy, that's when things start going pear-shaped, because you start to lose yourself. And because I was trading on a screen, the value of money, I didn't register in my head how much money. I should have just cashed it all in and just bought loads of flats or whatever. That's the most sensible thing to do. But I was so into this, I was like trading on the American markets, the Japanese market. I was all over the shop trading anyway. 2000, 2001, it all went wrong. And I lost a lot of money. I came out of, I think, about 80,000. Just took the rug from underneath me. And by that time, there's an old saying, never chase a loss in the stock market. If you get whacked in the stock market, don't start trying to trade your way out of it. Just stay away from it, because emotionally you're done. Because you're going to be thinking about that loss while you're trying to trade. And what you're going to do is you're going to start betting more and trading more. So what I did was I went into spread betting, which is an even more dangerous form of gambling. It is gambling. At the end of the day, it's this devil's casino, the stock market. You are gambling. It doesn't matter what anyone says. And I formed a currency club with other officers. And I was putting I was taking 5, 10, 20 grand off of different officers, and I ended up trading millions of pounds again. And but what I didn't realise was, and no one else did, I'd lost it. I was burnt out.
You didn't realise it yourself?
I didn't realise it myself to start with. I was done. And I think denial is people get themselves in trouble because they don't realise when the game's up, when it's time to, when a boxer carries on fighting and he's done and he's, you know what I mean, and he ends up getting smashed to pieces. It's the same sort of thing. I started losing my morals. People say you never had any in the first place, but, I started losing, I started drinking and anyway, the pressure of dealing with so many I had about 120 coppers involved me up and down the country. Scotland, I was sending,
wow.
It went all bandy. I started using police cars to send money to different police stations, and they'd come down to my house. I'd have more police cars on my driveway than the local Nick. So I'd have about 150, 200 grand on the floor, putting it all in envelopes. It was trying to keep track of all this, giving it to police cars, police motorbikes, special escort group, SCO, not I mean. They'd be flying through London on blues and twos, not going to a job, just delivering my money.
So you'd take the money, you'd invest it, and if they made it back,
so it started off, initially it started off, we were making money. But then, as I said to you, what I didn't realise was I was shot to pieces mentally, and I started losing. And then because I started losing, I was panicking and taking more money, trying to trade my way out of it. I'd tried to do property. I bought £1 million Barnes conversion, which would have done all right, but I started using the money from investors for properties that they wanted to invest in property. And I started using that, putting it into the market. So I was lying. I started lying and become, they called me a con man, a cheat. I was all those things and worse. That's what I turned into. And I look back, I don't recognise that person anymore. And I become someone I didn't, I was bullying police officers, I was corrupting police officers. I was getting them to take out fraudulent loans. I could ring up. A lot of my problem was because of my reputation. So people trusted me. And I could ring up someone in Birmingham and say, transfer 50 grand down to Joe Bloggs, and they'd do it like that. They wouldn't want no paperwork, they wouldn't want to know why, they'd just do it.
Do you think people were scared of you too?
No, not scared of me. No, they respected me.
Right.
But what happened was I started becoming, not with everyone, but certain people who are in the fold with me. I said, look, you need to do that. You need to do this. You need to do that. Like police escorts. What's that all about? I remember I was involved with someone who's worth 100 million, this idiot, and I had to give him 50 grand as a return, and he was on my case. So one of his employees that I knew, that was the connect. He said, we need the money. So I said, right, cash. So I met him in Beckton in a car park. This has all been in court. So this ain't flannel, this has all been in court evidence. So I met him in a car park in a superstore in Beckton. I was in I had a Porsche 911 Carrera and 2 Range Rovers. I was in a Porsche that day. And I had a police area car from Dagenham turn up, a BMW estate with 2 police officers in it. And then I went over to the Connect, who was in a BMW X5, gave him the 50 grand cash and said, right, they're going to follow you all the way into the Limehouse link, just in case you're going to get robbed. And then there's another police car waiting for you on the other side to take you all the way into London, which is what happened. Because in my mind, I don't trust you. You could tell and go, oh, the money's been stolen. Well, no, it's not going to be stolen because you've got police.
So you were at that point using the police force.
I was gone. I was there. I'm there doing that. Look, I'm there doing that, but no one else is seeing it.
Yeah.
I've corrupted them.
And in their head, they're thinking it's all going well.
It's all going well.
Yeah.
But I still don't think I'm doing that at the moment. I'm shot to pieces, but I'm thinking I'm all good.
God.
And I was lying to people, but in my head I was thinking, but I'm going to get out of this because I'm going to trade. There's going to be a big trade that's going to come and it's going to go boof. And no one's going to know. Even when I was in the I made £200,000 in one day on a trade, a gold trade, I think it was. But then the next day or a day later, I lost £200,000.
Right.
And when I should have realised then, when I got the same feeling losing than I did winning, I should have realised I was. But I didn't. I carried on.
So how much money do you think you lost in?
I lost £3 million as it was reported of investor money, but I lost about £2 million of my own money as well. So about £5 million in total.
Over a period of how long is it? 3
or 4 years, I think it was. It ended up culminating in me getting a contract put out of me.
A contract?
Yeah, a contract, yeah.
Like a
hitman? Yeah, I had a hitman. Yeah, they give me an Osmo morning. I'd seen all the paperwork. It was a hitman. He had the capability to carry out the contract.
So who's put this out on you?
Basically, an individual that I was connected with brought in dirty money into the syndicate.
Right.
I didn't know it was dirty money at the time. But would I have cared? being how desperate I was? No.
Right.
So I'm not going to say, oh, I would have took it anyway because I was desperate. Anyway, this individual is a well-known gangster. He's put this contract out on me. And I've ended up, it's just starting, by this time, I'm like taking sleeping tablets, I'm drinking, I'm off my head. And I've nearly killed a Sun reporter. He's turned up at my house, I thought it was a hitman. But the day before, I'd gone out, I'd seen a fella look my house up and down. When I've gone round the corner, he's in the car on a phone, he's got my details on a piece of paper. So I've tried to get him out of the car and he's sped off and tried to trap me between a wall. Nearly killed me. And the anti-corruption command didn't make life any easy for me. They come and said, your life's in danger, blah, blah, blah. I didn't trust them anyway, and that's another story. I'm not going to have a go at them. But then the following day, this Sun reporter turns up and I've got involved, long story short, big chase. I've rammed his car, rammed him off the road and stuck a gun in his head.
God.
So I've ended up going to court. I got off with that because I feared for my life. I thought it was it, man. I mean, as you luck.
You armed police then? Is that what?
No, I had a gas gun, but it would have killed if I'd have just gone that, I would have killed him anyway. But I mean, just think when things can't get any worse, I'm thinking it's a hitman. Imagine rolling over and, I'm a Sun reporter. I mean, that's the last thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that all went off in the papers and then ultimately I get locked up for witness intimidation on police. So I didn't do it. If I'd done it, I'll tell you, it's whatever it was years ago. They said that I'd intimidated a police officer at his house or something had happened, and let's see, whatever. But then I had another argument with someone who's involved with me who knew what the score was, and they're about to roll over on me, and I started bullying. But I had a row with him, didn't threaten him or anything like that. But anyway, he's got frightened and he's gone to the police. So I knew I was going to get locked up then, and that's what happened. I got remanded. Into custody as a police officer, serving police officer. I ended up at Pentonville Prison, and I don't know if any of you have ever been to a prison, but it's so.
And how long was that for?
I spent 6 weeks there. What happened was I got there and I was put in a cell with a gang member from South London. I didn't tell him I was old Bill. And
I'm surprised they do that.
Yeah, no, listen, usually, well, they did that to start with. So basically what happened was I stayed under the radar. I thought, okay, just don't say nothing, I'll be sweet. And because I had a bit about me, a bit of, not swagger, but I could talk and I'll act sort of like, because I'm from the East End anyway, so it was survival mode, wasn't it? So I was chatting away to him anyway, go down for dinner. I'm in the canteen queue, like all the rest of the boys are behind me, mates. And as I've come up, they sign your name off when you get your food. And this guy's gone, Paul Page. He goes, you're f***ing old Bill, aren't you? I was like, you could hear a pin drop behind me. I was like, oh. And I thought, what do I do? And I said, I'm not hard nut. I'm not trying to be a hard nut. But either front it out or I'm going to get a kick. I'm going to get killed here. So I said, who are you talking to, mate? I'm here for witness intimidation, you idiot. And because he wasn't too sure, do you know what I mean? And I wasn't for intimidation, I wouldn't lie. I'm just never followed through with I was old Bill as well. Anyway, so they locked us up. We got out there and went back to cell. He went, all right, mate, all right, calm down, I made a mistake. But what he's done is he's gone back to his cell because they were the servery people, so they could stay out and clean the servery. So they were still unlocked. We were all locked up. And about 4 or 5 of them come to my door and slid the newspaper under the thing with my picture in it.
Oh, shit.
Roll cop. I was like, my cellie, he went pale white. He said, oh, no, they're going to think I'm a snitch. I said, right, he said, oh, let's have a think, what can we do? So I said, do you know anyone? I said, I'll pay him for protection. He goes, yeah, my cousin's upstairs. He runs the landing upstairs. He's got some people up there. We'll go and see him first thing and unlock. I said, just tell me what his bank did. I'll sort him out some money. Just make sure he watches my back. He said, yeah, it's done. No worries. So that's me thinking, right, I've got an angle to survive. And then about 7 in the morning or 6 in the morning, 4 big screws, 4 or more, come to the door and said, Paige, get your kit, you're going on the rule. I went, no, I'm not. No, the rule is, you know what the rule is?
No.
The numbers.
What is it?
VP wing, what's it called again? Vulnerable persons wing.
Okay.
So that's where all the paedophiles and the sex cases go.
Right.
So now I'm going to take you back to the beginning of our conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm faced with that there. I've told you how I give it the large one back there. Now I'm faced with that. I was never going on that. Yeah. Like I said to you, when you go to court and all the rest of it and you're standing there, what goes around comes around. If you're prepared to dish out, at some stage you're going to have to take it. And this was my turn. So I just said to him, look, I'm not going on that VP. We're going to went, yes, you are. All right. I was cocky. I mean, fair enough. I was old Bill and they thought it was funny. I said, no, I'm not. I said, if you put me on there, he's my witness, I'll stab the first sex case that come across in both eyes. I said, so I'm putting you on notice now, he's my witness.
So you'd rather take your chances?
Yeah. I said, what are you going to do? He goes, well, if you're saying you're a danger to other prisoners, I said, no, I'm not a danger to other prisoners. I'm a danger to sex cases and nonces. There's a difference. And he said to me, and if you're selling that shit, you're going to have to go on the punishment block. Right, I'm thinking, well, that's all right then, because I'm going to get locked up on my own. I don't have to watch my back because we're only allowed it half an hour and 24 hours or whatever it is. I'd rather do that, get on the punishment block. And so that's what I did. I went down, got put in the punishment, it's in the basement, and I used the word hole, and that's being polite. It is like an absolute dungeon. It's just so archaic. And I went in there, and the first thing you do when you're in a prison cell, and I only want to tell you, and I'm not an old lag, I've done a few years, but you clean your cell. It will have bodily fluids everywhere, yeah? And so you clean your cell, that's what I did. And then I noticed, I was looking around, there's all toilet rolls stuck in the walls of this, all the cracks in the walls and down the sink. And I thought, who the f*** been in here? So I took it all out, put it in a bag and cleaned it all up. So I was asleep. And about 2 a.m, I sat rattling on my noodles. I thought, what's that? And then I've started to run across my face.
Oh my God.
So I've jumped up, put the lights on, my cell was full of cockroaches.
Oh.
And they were big as well. They were like... Anyway, I've realised then what the toilet paper was for. It was to stop the cockroaches from getting in.
Right.
So I had to spend the next day putting all the toilet paper back. And it was horrendous in there, yeah. And they kept coming down, the governor kept, because I was a serving police officer, locked up. She kept coming down going, oh, do you want to move on to VP wing yet? And I said, no. I said, just leave me where I'm fine. Because obviously it doesn't look good for them, does it? I'm a police officer and I'm on the block. But I had about 10 cockroaches in a bag, and I said, look, if you don't leave me alone, I'm going to want to see the IAG, the Independent Advisory Group. You know, like you get a vicar, a lawyer, and a couple of other people that come around, oh, you're right. No, it's independent outside the prisons. It's everything. I said, I want to go and see them, and I'll show them all my cockroaches. So I went, all right, stay. You're all right, stay where you are. So I rode it out for 6 weeks, and I got out. So I go to court for obviously it all goes off with the fraud.
Yeah.
I was in denial. Look, I was in denial. I still wasn't grasping the fact that I'd done all these bad things and I'd hurt all these people, which I had. I'd done it all, and some. And I was in denial. I just wouldn't comprehend that I'd lied to friends and colleagues, and I'd hurt people bad, and I just wouldn't have it. I was angry. So I went not guilty, and they put my wife in she had nothing to do with it. There was more people who had a lot more to do with my situation. My wife had nothing to do with it. I know when I was going to court, I had a bottle of Sprite. But what I was doing is I was stopping off at Tesco's and filling it up with white wine. Oh, wow. So when I was sitting in court listening to all these bad things that I'd done, I was just drinking. I'm sitting there like, I don't give two stuffs because I'm sozzled. And I did that through the trial. It was. And
what was the outcome of the trial?
Oh, I got guilty all day long. I was guilty, and I'm just sorry that I put all those people through a trial. I should have just, if they let my wife go earlier and whatever else, I was wounded, and people were saying, oh, he's a grass, he said this about that. But no, what I did was I stuck it on other officers who'd give evidence against me, and quite rightly so. They were hurt, they were wounded. And because I was deluded, I started having to go back when I should have just kept my gob shut and just took it. And I didn't.
So how long did you get?
I got a 6.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I probably should have got longer. But I got a 6. And I was down, before I got that, when I was down there with another officer, he was from Hertfordshire. Man, he was corrupt in the very time when I said bent for self. So we got talking, and he said, oh yeah, anti-corruption, they've done me. He said, I'm gone. I said, what happened? He goes, I was selling information to criminals, and I was doing drug raids and putting half the money in my pocket, and I just thought, you know what, you wanker. I mean, I was bad, but that wasn't me, do you know what I mean? I know what I did was bad enough, but that's not my sort of, and I thought, oh. And he goes, yeah, what they did was, he goes, I knew they were on me. I said, right. He goes, but I went to a raid, they staged this raid. He said, I knew they staged it. He goes, but I still took money. I said, what would you do with it? He goes, I thought, F it, I'm going to do it. So anyway, and then he realised, he said, and then I got paranoid, and I thought they were following me, which I think they obviously were. He goes, and I had a drug dealer's, the connect for him to do his legs was this, he had a number on the cigarette packet of the drug dealer that it was connected to.
Right.
He said, and what I did was I parked up outside newsagents, and as I went to go, and I quickly threw the the cigarette box in the bin, thinking he was like discarding the connection. He goes, anyway, 6 o'clock the next morning, I've come through my door with the big red key. I'm in interview, and the anti-corruption bloke's got the cigarette box out and plonks it on the table. So we found that in the glove box of your car. What you got to say about it?
Oh, right.
Yeah, I mean, fight fire with fire.
Right.
You know, what goes around comes around. You know, and he was going, the dirty bastards. And I think, dirty bastards, what about us?
Okay. So you did, am I right in thinking you did 3 years in prison in total?
Yeah. I mean, again, you know, I'll come back to you. You know, you said to me, did I get a slap in jail? I was so lucky. I was so lucky. What I say to corrupt police officers out there, what happened to me, I'll quickly tell the story. Don't think if you get caught that it's going to happen to you, because the chances of you getting a double clump are quite high. I was so lucky. I mean, with this particular idiot, he was now have to be my wingman, because we're survival mode now. This isn't a little remand situation. This is now, poof, we're going away for a stretch. So we've got to get your. But see, matey boy, it was all big in the job, doing this, that, and the others. Now it's starting to register. Oh no, I haven't got a radio to call for assistance anymore. I'm on my own. Yeah, you're on your own now, mate. And we are the lowest of the low. As a police officer in jail, you're there with the sex offences. You're down there with the sex offences, the nonces, the grasses. You're the same level. You're just as much of a target now.
So were you scared?
I was so off key. I was so, like, my feelings were all over the place that I was emotionally dead to a degree. I didn't have time to be fearful, if that makes sense. I wasn't being a hard nut. I didn't think I was, no, I was so shook, and my head was so messed up, but I was in survival mode. But this fella, because he wasn't as sort of messed up as me, but he's starting to realise the gravity of the situation he was in. And I said to him, right, when we get to the big house, just follow my lead. All right, I said, just do what I tell you. So we get bussed off with this John fella. We go to Wandsworth, and they get everyone off all the other people off the bus first. Just left the 2-old bill on there. Yeah, and so they get processed, because obviously we're going to be targets. And we go in, and there's about 20 prison officers crammed into this custody office, like, I don't know, like Tom Cruise is about to rock in. They wanted to come and see the 2 bank coppers, didn't they? They thought it was funny. And one of them goes to me, which one of you is Paige? I went, I am. He goes, I suppose you're going on the road, then, are you, mate? I went, no, I'm not, and neither is he. Oh, you're fucking cocky one, aren't you? I went, no. But obviously they thought, we'll see how long you last, mate. We're probably having a bet. Like, I'll say he's going to last a day, he's going to last 2 days, whatever. Yeah, I deserved it. What can I say? Yeah. Anyway, so we get put on the induction wing, and I can't remember if it was then or when we actually went through to the proper wing, and I said to him, right, get your toothbrush, get your razor and break it up now. He goes, what? I said, get your razor and break it up. No, we ain't got time to argue about it, and then start carving the bottom of your toothbrush, because you're going to need that. And I said, while you're at it, get that kettle on and put that pound of sugar next to that kettle, because if they're coming through that door, mate, I'm making a wedge right now. So basically what you do is you get a piece of newspaper and you fold it in like long sort of sections like that, you soak it, and then you fold it in half so it's like a V shape, and you put it under your bed and let it dry, because then it becomes rock hard and it's a wedge. So what you do is you put the wedge in the door, just so there's only that much. If someone's trying to come through your door, they can only get sort of that much through. Right. And then while they're doing that, trying to force the door, you've put the sugar in the kettle, and you've just gone boof. Jesus. It's called jugging or napalming, yeah? Now, that's, unfortunately, that's it now. You know, there's no more rocking about in a police car, being a big man and doing whatever. This is the gravity of the situation. This is real life. So he's now thinking, he's starting to wobble, this fella. So I've gone through, and as we go, I remember, so we come out the induction, as I'm walking through with all my crap, they're all on the landings going, you pig, you're dead, you're this, that, and the others, we're going to get you. And I'm walking through thinking, oh, no. But in behind me, they didn't even know it was old Bill. They just knew it, because I was in the papers, I was on the telly. Yeah. So I was the target. Anyway, we're put in the cell, and I said, same route, get all this stuff ready. I think it was then. I said, get the kettle ready, get this. And you could see the fear in it. And he's a big lump. He wasn't like a little worked away. He was a big lump. But you could see him shrivelling. Like I could see him dying in front of me. And then we had to go and get our food, another canteen situation. So we went out and goes to the canteen. There's loads of people, but everyone knows I'm old Bill now. It's not like I can style out and pretend I wasn't. And as we're going through getting our slop, this one fella slops it on my plate and goes, oh, ain't like that in the police canteen, is it, mate? I thought it was funny. I said, "What'd you say to me? What do you do again? Do I fold like a deck of cards, or just take my thing like a little wimp and walk out, or do I front it out? Because if I get a kicking, I get a kicking, but if I don't, I'm going to get a double kicking. So you're in a position where you know whichever way you're going to go." So I just said to him, "What'd you say to me?" I said, "Come around and let's go." Well, you know, and you could hear a pin drop. And what happened was the screw who was behind the server, he walked out. He walked out and left me. I thought, all right. Anyway, the bloke said to me, "All right, calm down, man." Another one, he went, "Calm down, all right. It's only a fucking joke." All right, the bloke behind the servery. So we went back to our cell. He's about to have a heart attack now, this plum. He's going, "Oh, no, we're dead." So long story short, we go out on the yard. The geezer come around and shot me and said, "All right, respect for that." He goes, "Oh, I was only joking, mate." What I didn't realise was he was in with about 5 others for armed robberies. They were doing a 15 to 20 stretch. They could have just killed me. But went out on yard, same thing happened. Some people come over to me. I've gone to say to him, "Just walk off." He'd already gone. He'd lost his bottle. You know, poor old John, who, bless him, he couldn't punch his way a wet paper bag, stood by me. So when I got back to the cell, I thought, "Oh, I'm going to have to come away from him now because he's just a liability." So I said to him, "I'm going to move cells." He goes, "Oh, would you?" I'm thinking, "You are." No loyalty. So I moved, and he lasted a day and went on the roll.
Right.
But I got the kudos because they found out it was old Bill, and that's what saved me. This is my point I'm making. That's why I was lucky. Because I did that, I got all the kudos. People coming up to you, shaking my hand, saying, "Do you know what? Respect for you, because you didn't go on the numbers." He did, and they were gunning for him. So at that point, I managed to get myself back, and then start looking at the situation. Then you start thinking what you did wrong, and what you did, because you're in jail now. All you got is your press ups and your faults. That's all you got. And I started realising, actually, I did do all these things. Actually, I'm a scumbag. And if you do something wrong, you're never going to get past it unless you face up to it. You know what I mean? If I had the guts, when I realised it was gone wrong and face up to it had gone wrong and been honest. Do you know what I mean? But I didn't have the guts. I didn't have the guts to face my fears at the time and my worst fears and stop what was happening. So a lot more people got hurt. But when I was in jail and I realised I had chances in life that I just blew. But I was surrounded by people who never had a chance in life. Do you know what I mean? And I've took the mickey, you know.
Did it change how you felt about some of the criminals you were coming across in your earlier life?
That's what I'm saying. That some of these people are born into a criminal life. Some of them never had the chance to get out. They revert to type every time they come out of jail because they've got no support system. Now, I had all the chances in the world and I blew the lot, you know. And that's when you start realising, you're looking deep into yourself and think, you know what? When you get out, just be honest with yourself and others and just tell it how it please or offend, just tell it straight. Never get yourself in situations like that. You know, and what I did was, because I was old Bill, I was always going to be a target for the 3 years I spent in jail. So I started thinking, right, you got to make yourself from a liability into an asset. How do you do that? Well, how I did it was I was helping people with their legal paperwork. So they'd come up to me and the door, knock on the door. So I've got this letter from my solicitor. I don't really understand. I said, come in, I'll read it for you and I'll explain it to you and stuff like that. So I was using my knowledge of the law to help people. And then obviously that builds some sort of friendship, stroke loyalty. And again, with helping people to read and write. And I ended up working as doing rottweights for people so they get their home leaves. Anyone knows who's been to jail, the most important thing is, obviously you can say, but your home visits and your phone credit. So I sort of did things to help other prisoners. And that got me, respect, and it stopped me from getting assaulted in prison. You know, I become accepted as, they're my people now. I'm a fellow inmate. I'm not, we're all together. And that's how we were. You know, I got on well and I survived. But that gave me the sort of understanding. I was in prison with people who'd been abused, and obviously a couple of people had said to me, look, I've gone down, my head's gone, and I was abused by my dad and all the rest of it, and I've ended up in a life. You know what I mean? You just start thinking, you can understand these people have never had a half decent chance in life. That's all they want, just a little chance. You can see talent in some of these people. There's some fantastic artists in there. You know, this boy I said had been abused by his dad. He was a fantastic artist. He did a mural, a Chelsea mural in his room at Coldingley. And the new governor came round and made him paint over it. And I thought, why didn't you just put some posters up when you come round and then take it down again? Do you know what I mean? It was mentally stimulating for him. And, mental health is another thing in prison. You get a lot of individuals that are mentally ill and they don't get the help they need.
It was interesting because A lot of the people we talk to say that go into prison as prisoners say prison doesn't help them, it just perpetuates a problem. It's interesting to hear from someone that went into prison as a policeman that it does seem like it showed you when you, like, what do you do now since leaving?
I work for a major, I won't say what it is, but I work for a major company, and I've worked for a friend's private security company. So I don't want to go back into that sort of life I was. Do you know what I mean? As it's like sort of protection and all that sort of stuff. I'm happy now. Well, listen, every time I wake up, it's still a bit of pill to swallow what's happened to me and what I've done to people. Do you know what I mean? That will never go away. That's a cross I'm going to have to bear for the rest of my life, and I understand that. But everyone deserves, as far as I'm concerned, the reason I told you about the prison stuff, when you're a police officer and you go to jail, you're stripped of everything, your job, your family, your dignity, everything. You've got one, as far as I'm concerned, and I said it in a previous interview, you've got one chance in life, one sort of bean sprout to grow your respectability back, and that's don't go on the sex offenders wing. You've done what you've done, but now you've got to go on main population. If you get a clump, if you get levelled out, you're just gonna have to go to your cell, smash it up, or bang a screw out and get put on the block. Do not go on the sex offenders wing, whatever you do, because that's it. You're done. That's how I see it. All right. And if you can do that, if you can ride prison out, then you've done something, because that's the only thing you can do in prison. Obviously, I try to help people, but that to me was very important, because I've got children. How can I go on a visit and look at my children when I'm banged up with a sex case? No.
And the final thing I want to ask you, Paul, is you've basically had a very interesting life, and you've been through a lot of different kind of chapters, and you've got a lot of stories. Like, when you look back over your life, what's something you think you've learned? Like, what's something you take away from all the experiences?
I've learned, no matter what trouble you are in, no matter how life, no matter what you do in life, just always be honest with yourself and be honest with people around you. Because if you're not honest with yourself, you can't move on. You can't move on in life, because you're still lying to yourself, So if you've done something wrong, stand up and be counted. Don't bottle it up. Don't try and lie your way out of it. Just, you'll get more credit, more respect, and you'll probably cause less damage in whatever scenario you're in if you just be honest with yourself. It's like there's police officers out there, we all know, them scumbags, Cousins, and the other idiot, what's his name? The one who, anyway, these kind of people, unfortunately, are in the job. I've given the job a bad name. I understand that I've disrespected the uniform and all the rest of it. But there are individuals like this in the job, and there are other officers in the job that are susceptible to corruption. If they've got a problem, they need to speak about it, because the job's bad enough as it is. Every year, the police service, or police force as I like to call it, has a tooth taken out of its gob every year. And in the end, it's just going to be a toothless line. It's not going to be effective in any way, shape or form. So if there's officers out there, have got problems, they need to air them. They need to speak to someone. They don't necessarily have to go to thing, but they need to just get it out there, because if we can get people to admit their mistakes and admit, they've got a problem, we might be able to, claw something back in society as a whole. Just be honest. It might be the worst thing you could do in terms of what you're thinking, but you know what? It's better than go down the road I did, because trust me, that just leads to bad places.
It's amazing to hear your story. You tell it brilliantly. Thank you so much for coming.
That's fine. Thanks for having me.
Good to meet you.
Yeah.
We managed to interrupt the drug supply in Northampton for a full 2 hours. So 7 months of work, 96 people arrested.